The debate over transgenderism isn't simply a debate about fairness in women's sports and safety in locker rooms. For many parents, it's a conversation about their children's future. Brenton Netz is one such parent. He's the father of a 12-year-old boy with autism who was treated by a therapist who, Netz says, manipulated his son to believe he is a transgender girl and a lesbian. Only through swift legal action was Netz able to block his son's mother and medical authorities from moving forward with irreversible hormone treatments and eventually surgical interventions that would mutilate his son's body. Fortunately, Netz's case was successful, and he currently has co-custody as well as biweekly visitation with his son. And Brenton Netz joins us now to discuss his situation and parental rights when dealing with the issues of gender confusion in children. Brenton, welcome back to the program.
Oh, hi, Joseph. Good to see you.
It's good to see you. Thanks for taking some time to tell your story. And first, I want to get into some of these details, but I introed a little bit about what your journey is. How are you and your son doing now, kind of on the back end of some of this legal challenges?
Yeah, well, him and I are doing really good. Our relationship is growing and we're bonding, and things between him and I are getting better all the time. He's still having a lot of trouble in school, and it's the same old kind of stuff going on otherwise, but him and I are getting along really good now.
Well, I'm thrilled to hear that. You do have a very different perspective on this national conversation than so many others for whom it's theoretical. We're talking about other people, there's safety concerns, but it's not quite as personal. What is your perspective, given your experience on the national conversation around transgenderism that so many other people are having?
Yeah, you're right. It's very personal. I feel like a lot of people are waking up. I have been fighting this for over 2 years now, and I can tell you that we've made a lot of progress. There is a lot more people that I've seen in my own life and just paying attention to this issue more than probably the average person does. And I think we're, gaining ground. I think there's a lot of awareness that's spreading. People that, just a year or two ago that I know, never even heard, what's transgenderism, what's a trans kid. Now they're beginning to understand the subject, and they're usually not for it. So I do feel like, on a national level, if you want to call it that, we're really breaking ground.
I'm glad to hear that you feel like progress is being made, but some of the conversations about this issue hasn't been helpful. And you've talked about the impact that therapists, for example, have had on your son's life. Tell us about, from your perspective, how outside voices have affected the way your son views himself.
Yeah, well, he's autistic, as you mentioned. He's been diagnosed with autism officially since he was 4 years old. And, people that aren't, entwined in this to the level that I am, unfortunately, don't realize that they're in lockstep. The schools are in lockstep. The medical system, the media, of course. It's like they're in a way attacking our kids on all fronts. Just today I had a Zoom meeting with Miles's teachers at his school because he's having a hard time at school. And just right off the bat, they're calling him Miley, they're calling him a she, they're calling him a them and a there and a they. And I keep correcting them and asking them to use at least gender neutral pronouns. And they begrudgingly will do it. But then, a minute later, they're just going right back into the she's and stuff. So, this really is a big cult. And I've found that I'm, fighting, it's me against a lot of other people, a lot of other adults that are influencing my son's life. And it's very frustrating.
Now, it's interesting. If the legal outcome has been favorable and this transition is not taking place, why are you facing that kind of behavior from his teachers?
Well, in my case, it's, similar to, I always have, I bring up Jeff Younger in Texas a lot because people know his case, the Save James case, and there is a lot of similarities between our situations. And it really comes down to my situation as a parent is very much complicated by the fact that my son's mother is on the other side of this, let's call it debate or worldview. She's a cult member. She's in it hook, line, and sinker. And when that's the case, when there's like two parents that are on either side of the battle, so to speak, it just compounds it tenfold.
That makes a lot of sense. And that's got to be hard on your son to be getting different perspectives, different takes, different input from his parents. How is he processing that?
Well, when he's with me, this is what I'll say. When he's with me, the Miley stuff doesn't exist. He doesn't insist on any of this. It's as if it doesn't exist for the most part. Every once in a while, he'll get upset with me and he might try to use it as a little manipulative tool, but it doesn't last very long. And it really just comes down to, I don't fully understand it. He's autistic, and autistic people tend to be obsessive, and when they get their mind on something, it's really hard to get off of it. And his mother just really drives it home. I mean, like, she can't go 10 seconds without calling him Miley and calling him a she. And it's just like, it's just this constant reinforcement. And so when he's with me, it goes away. And I do feel like it's kind of a reprieve or a relief for him. And I'm going to continue to do so. He's 12, and I'm just going to hang in there. Puberty is going to kick in soon. And I'm hoping that that will work in my favor.
And we know statistically that it does. And thankfully, children who experience gender dysphoria, whether as a function of a social contagion or just a legitimate medical issue, the super majority, once they go through puberty, that desists. And we certainly hope and pray that's going to happen in your situation as well, Brenton. Now, last question. There likely are parents listening, watching today, or grandparents who might be in a similar situation. What would you tell them?
Well, okay. I would just say, there's a lot I could say, more than we could probably get to here, obviously, but I would just say, be aware. This is everywhere. It's in the schools. It's online. It's in, cartoons and media. It's in the medical system. There is a coordinated attack on our children. And if your child is autistic or other, emotional issues, mental health issues like my son legitimately has, they are wide open to this stuff. And I would just say, you just cannot be too careful. If I had to do it all over again, there would be a lot of things I would do differently, but I would not have my son interact with these institutions. I would homeschool him. I'd be very careful with everyone, that any adult that has influence in his life, because it just seems to be everywhere.
Well, Brenton Netz, we applaud your courage, and you've fought a hard, difficult battle in a difficult climate, and a lot of people have caved to less pressure, and we applaud you and stand with you in your defense of your son. And thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, thank you, Joseph. Anytime.